Well, In My Life by the Beatles, I admit it's kind of one of my favorite songs. And every time I hear it, I get this, I'm sort of lulled into this, I don't know, this wonderful place of gratitude. Gratitude toward those who helped shape me, the particular people and places that are no longer in my life, but also those people and places that I hold most dear to my heart. I think of, for example, Rachel and her family. In the summer between high school and college, I had no home. My mother, who had multiple sclerosis, had moved into an assisted living, while I had a summer job, I had no place to live. So this woman, Rachel, she was a friend of mine in high school who I barely knew. She and her family put me up for the summer until I could get into the dormitory at the university. And I don't even remember if I ever really thanked them. I was so focused on getting into my life in college, you know that age. A few years later, two wonderful people, Tom and Donna Cutler, they took me under their wing when I was an undergraduate and supported me by helping me with housing, finances, and encouragement. There was no way I could have made it through college without them. Now back then, I don't think I really thought much about their assistance. When I was young, I'm sure I was appreciative, but I don't think I understood how much they did for me, the sacrifices, the generosity, the loving support that they gave me. As I got older and able to look back on my life, I have a better understanding of what it must have been like for them. And I'm filled with a kind of gratitude for all that they did for me. And perhaps you too have had people in your life that has helped you out as well. Now as I matured, I realized that I wanted to give back in a sense to honor what they had done for me. So to repay kindnesses that I know that I never could repay, I decided to join Big Brothers Big Sisters and began mentoring and supporting youth. I began to, what they say, is pay it forward. I got involved in youth groups at our local UU churches and found that while the work was hard, it was ultimately really rewarding. Now youth, just like I was back then, they aren't always given to a sense of gratitude necessarily. They don't always understand the hours of preparation, sacrifice, and effort that we put in to supporting, helping, spending time with them. And that's okay, that's really not their job at that time of life. But I wonder if Tom and Donna or Rachel's family ever know how much gratitude I have for them after all that they did. Now I may never know and they may never know, but I can give meaning to what they did for me. I can pay it forward. And paying it forward is kind of an old philosophy, though the phrase, I guess I understand, was first coined in 1916. Paying it forward happens when someone does something nice for us, and rather than paying it back to that person who did the good deed, instead we pass that good deed on to someone else. It's a kind of spiritual practice, really. It's kind of like re-gifting, in a way. Only you're giving the gift you received of the past and giving it to someone in their future. The gift isn't always recognized for what it is in the present, but it creates, it reinforces, and builds upon that continuing legacy that began in love. Now, I think it's human nature to want to leave a legacy to the world. Sometimes a legacy is dramatic, given in the form of a large gift of money or goods. But any legacy, whether it's small or large, it isn't just a gift. A legacy isn't just for the enjoyment of that moment. Rather, it's a very special kind of gift. A legacy is a gift that keeps on giving. It's one that can be re-gifted in a sense, passed down to the next generation, gift-wrapped in new ways. For example, our theological ancestors, they left us legacies. The Unitarians, this is sort of a gross generalization, but they left us the legacy of reason. That is the encouragement to ask questions and to not be afraid of them. And out of this tradition came the spiritual path of humanism, that tradition that rejects the interference of supernatural forces and embraces and lifts up the human spirit. Unitarianism was able to hold and embrace humanism with all its questions and new answers. Now, can you imagine any other religion where this wouldn't create a schism in the church? But it didn't for us. And far from it, it helped us grow spiritually. And that's part of the legacy of Unitarianism, to hold all of those questions that bring new ideas. On the Universalist side, the legacy of this tradition is love. It's not just a warm, fuzzy feeling, but it's an inclusive, all-embracing, fierce kind of love. A love that doesn't limit salvation to a chosen few, but instead embraces all of humanity. Today, this legacy of love gives us a desire to understand and grow with those who might be different from us, and to affirm and promote the dignity and worth of all people, not just the chosen or privileged few. Now, both these legacies continue in Unitarian Universalism after we merged in 1961, but these legacies also will be used in new and different ways. After all, we are a different church now. And what will the legacy of this new tradition, this new generation of church be? Will we learn to do church differently? How will reason and love inform us now? The two legacies now have created an appreciation and inclusion of all worldviews and philosophies, finding wisdom in many sources, using both reason and love as our guides for identifying what is wisdom. These living gifts, or these legacies from the past, are meant to be molded and changed to fit the present needs and to build a new future. That's also the sign of a legacy. It's not something that's sort of static or stuck, but rather it's something that changes with the times. It's easy to look at the past and try to emulate what was done in the past, but the past is past and the present has its own set of needs. When we look to the past for our answers, we can become rather stuck. The Reverend Bob West, who was a Unitarian minister, he once said this while quoting Milton: "As we review the history of our denomination in this country, the names of numerous Unitarians and Universalists appear as leaders in government, literature, education, social and humanitarian causes, scholarship, the arts, and science. But as we Unitarian Universalists today recall those facts, we would do well to heed John Milton's admonition that the light from our past is given us, not to be ever staring on, but by it to discover onward things, to make of our own life a worthy vessel. If the waters of the streaming fountain of truth flow not in a perpetual progression, they sicken into a muddy pool of conformity and tradition. Unitarian Universalist religion today is us. We decide the nature of those waters, of the streaming fountain." So Unitarian Universalist religion today is us. It's important not to let our legacy grow stagnant, but to also trust in the future generations that they too will pay it forward, and we will do it in their own way that is formed by their circumstances. This is how our gift will keep giving on. When we try to control the future by holding on to the past, it usually creates more harm than good, so we pay it forward. Alcoholics Anonymous says, "You can't pay back anyone for what has happened to you, so you try to find someone you can pay forward." This concept of paying it forward it's a natural one. By being helped, it engenders a sense of gratitude and then impels us to help others. In fact, paying it forward has become such a popular concept that there are many nonprofits that are actually driven by this philosophy. Things like the Karma Seed Project, the Newton Project, or Heifer International, and other microloan agencies. This philosophy of leaving legacies that keep on giving doesn't happen with just goods or services, but in the ways that people treat one another, in the way that we teach one another through our actions. Let me tell you about Janine Ellison. She was a shaman and my mentor and teacher. I first met her in the fall of 2001, just after 9/11, in a class that she taught on shamanism. It was one of my first, and I admit when I first met her, she was a little bit out there. She wore tie-dye dresses with leggings, all in bright colors. She liked purple and orange in particular. She wore, I remember, sort of calf-high moccasins, and she had this really long hair that she had feathers and beads always sort of sewn into it. She had a big smile, she laughed a lot, and hugged everyone. Now, I came from the corporate world. This is the land of suits, yes, dress shoes, neatly coiffed hair and makeup, tastefully done. A place where you shook hands and tried very hard to look interested in what anyone was trying to say. A place where honest mistakes were called incompetence, and new creative ideas were shot down on a regular basis. A place where the term, "the suit makes the man," was held as gospel. And so I admit it, I totally judged her. I mean, if she couldn't even dress like a professional, how competent could she be? What could she ever teach me? And wow, was I wrong. She was one of the most brilliant leaders that I have ever known. She made everyone feel safe, listened to, cared for without pandering or getting off topic. No one's ideas were belittled, and no one made small because their thoughts weren't crafted with erudite language or logical constructs. Instead, she encouraged people. She challenged them when they needed it, held them to respectful behavior, and she did it all without raising her voice, without belittling, getting angry. She did it by honoring and respecting each and every person, and everyone around her just flourished. She was my Moses, and she taught me how to lead. And when she was diagnosed with an incurable cancer in 2007, she taught me how to die. She faced her own fears about death. She made her friends and her family knew of her love for them. And when she could no longer speak words, I remember she just hugged me fiercely. It's like she was willing me to continue all that she taught me. She was asking me to pay it forward. She gave me a legacy of leadership, of love, a legacy of ministry. And I am forever grateful. And now I do my best to pay it forward to you all. And so her legacy, her life continues through me. Well, this church, it was started actually as a legacy of Catherine Hoffman and her friends. They wanted a liberal church here in Orange County. So they got together and started building. And that legacy has been added onto and molded in new ways that whatever was needed over the years. So I invite you to take a moment to look around you. Look at the walls and our chairs. We've got this piano over here. This new building complex that we've got. You see my new office? It's awesome. All of this is part of a living legacy of gifts that people in this church helped create over the last 60 years. They put their faith in the future of this church. They put their faith in you. They trusted in the years to come. They trusted in the future generations. Now, some people give to this legacy by volunteering every week to help out in worship. Maybe they're ushers or they're choir members. They make coffee. Others water the garden every week or paint the walls or even build new ones. Some sit on committees. Some sit on 2 or 3. Others come and sit in church ready to sing their heart out on Sunday morning. For example, Bob and Sherry Lotion gave to this legacy a gift that allowed our new kitchen to be finished. We have a kitchen behind here, if you didn't know. It's about to be finished, and in part because of their gift. 9 other families in this church gave a bridge pledge to help us get through some of the lean times in the next couple of years so that we could afford to move to this place. The people in this church add to the legacy created long ago. Every time we make or deliver a meal to those who have AIDS in our AIDS team ministry, it adds to that legacy every time we remember to give to sharing ourselves or we share the plate in our offering. We add to this legacy every time we support this church with our time, our treasure, and our talent. We are enriched by all of the gifts, both large and small, of all those who gave not for themselves, but give to the future. So now when I hear In My Life by the Beatles, I think also of all of you and all those people that I never met here in this church. I never met Catherine Hoffman. And I am very grateful. I'm grateful for everyone who has gone before us that helped us to be here today. Those giants on whose shoulders we stand. And they're not scary giants, but beautiful ones. I'm grateful for every person that built and is building this beloved community. So how do we honor these gifts that each of you and those in our past have made? And there's lots of ways. Our legacy committee is working actually on doing some more visible ways of doing that. But we can start right here and now by simply being grateful. We can say thank you. And most importantly, we can pay it forward. We are the ones, as the young dead soldiers tell us, the ones to make meaning of what came before. This is how we pay it forward. We take what was given in love and sacrifice and give it meaning. We pay it forward every time we're giving to this legacy of hope. We're paying it forward to Bird and Boone, to Michael and Brandon, to Eric and Joelle, to Hal and Sienna, to Ian and Donovan, for all of our children and youth, and to all those people, young and old, who have yet to join this church and who are in its future. We are also Moses, passing on our wisdom to Joshua, teaching and trusting in the next generation to see the world with eyes of hope, not of fear. And here's the funny thing about Moses, right? He knew he would never see that promised land. So why keep leading the people through the wilderness? He didn't give his life to his people for himself. He did it for the future. And that's what a legacy is. It's not one we give for ourselves, but for the future, even a future we may never see. Like Moses, we may not see the promised land of our Unitarian Universalist principle, right, of vision of world peace, liberty, and justice for all. But we are a voice for liberal religion here in Orange County, and we continue to grow in that capacity. This church builds upon that larger legacy, and we will add to it over the years. We continue this legacy every time we build up the beloved community, every time we treat one another with love, when we search with truth guided by reason and compassion, when we give not for ourselves, but for the future that we may never see. So look at all the work we've done, everybody showing up. Look at how far we've come, everybody building the path of love, and we gotta keep walking it. Oh, we gotta keep walking it. Amen.